shadows gather, when the raven swallows the day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Rambeard, and I would like to tell you everything there is to know about the Arakkoa. There's a lot of very interesting correlation between the Arakkoan legacy on Outland and their ongoing story on alternate Draenor. I'll try to emphasize these similarities or lack thereof as much as I can. Now, before we start, I initially wanted to make a video on every major Arakkoan character, but so many storylines overlap that I decided to just tell the story in several chapters instead, and this will make it clear when the same character is mentioned in different videos. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the story. Once upon a time, there were three gods that lived in Arakk: Rukmar, Anzu, and Sethe. Rukmar loved the sky and the sun, and tried to fly as high as she could. She got so close to the sun that she caught fire, but she didn't burn. The fire rolled from her wings like water. Her children were the Kaleri. Anzu preferred the shadow, and mostly came out at night to converse with the gods of the abyss, finding them dull. His children were the Dread Ravens. Then there was Sethe, who had terrible intentions. No matter how hard he tried, he could never get warm, and thus developed jealousy for Rukmar. His children were the Wind Serpents. His jealousy became hatred, and he plotted to slay Rukmar, persuading Anzu to join him. Anzu was cunning though, and silently warned Rukmar of Sethe's intentions. He waited on a mountain spire and enjoyed his view as he saw Sethe attack and Rukmar defend. As Rukmar was fully prepared, she easily handled Sethe, and with a flap of her wings cracked the sky upon Sethe, who crashed into one of the spires of Arakk, crumbling it instantly. Rukmar was done and flew away, but Anzu dove onto Sethe to feast upon him. Before Anzu could do so, Sethe uttered out a curse, saying, "My blood shall blacken the sea until it runs thick as tar. My flesh shall fester and spoil until the very sky rots with it." Anzu, being quick with his reply, said, "Then we shall leave no blood nor flesh," and devoured Sethe, picking the bones clean. One tiny drop of blood got spilled, however, and created the pools of Sethe, the blighted valley below his fall. The curse hit Anzu hard, and after struggling with it for a while, he escaped into the shadows. Rukmar was terrified of Sethe's curse and flew away, never landing in Arakk again. Far away, she created a new race of people to command the skies next to her Kaleri, the Arakkoa. She hoped that one day these bird people could return to Arakk and bask in the glorious wind and sun like she had. This is how the first Arakkoa came to be. As all this happened long before any outside interference, the story is exactly the same in our universe as well as in the alternate one. The Arakkoa would eventually return to Arakk and create their homes on top of the spires, staying far away from the ground where Sethe's curse was everlasting. Their main city was named Skyreach. Arakkoan culture was rather interesting, but nothing too special. In the early years, the Arakkoa respected not only the sun, but also the shadow, despite being created by Rukmar. An old Arakkoan lullaby states, "Shadows gather when the raven swallows the day. Burning sky is extinguished as black wings fold gently about the heavens. Rest, my children, rest, for even the sun must sleep." Worth noting is the Arakkoan interaction with another civilization, the Outcasts civilization. Not much is known about the Outcasts, but remnants of their society can be found around Arakk. They were a high civilization, using complex technologies. A lot of their technology is still out there, lying in caves, covered in dust. Some Arakkoa think nothing of the Outcasts artifacts, but others know better. The more clever Arakkoa are able to use certain Outcasts artifacts to their liking. You'll hear more of them later on as we come across them. At the head of Arakkoan society stood one male or female that ruled over all Arakkoa, but the title and role of these leaders changed from Arakkoa to Arakkoa. The greatest leader that ever lived is with relative certainty Terokk, the Talon King. He is said to have built the entirety of Skedis with his bare claws. He was so beloved that people thought him to be the reincarnation of Rukmar herself, which is obviously not true, as Rukmar still lives to this day in the alternate universe. He had one known daughter, Lithik, who he adored with all his heart. An example of Terokk's greatness is his encounter with Pride Lord Karash, a Saberon leader of sorts. This Saberon once declared war on the Arakkoa in hopes to defeat them altogether. Instead of sending an army, Terokk went into the Saberon camps by himself and slaughtered basically everyone, including the Pride Lord, on his own. Terokk was a wise ruler and sought to bring order to Arakkoan society, not wanting to dabble in too much power. There were of course some, sages mainly, that did want to increase their power, and were even jealous of Tarek's might. They conspired against him, and when the time was there they tossed him, his daughter Lithic, and some of his most faithful followers off of Skyreach into the pools of Sethe. Lithic and most of the followers straight up died from the impact, but some survived, including Terokk himself of course, strong as he was. Seeing his daughter die made him fall into despair, and while he might have had the strength to counter Sethe's curse in his prime, he certainly did not at this moment. He fell to the curse and transformed into a flightless, misshapen Arakkoa, as we can see him at some points in the World of Warcraft. The most important of his followers that survived the fall are Ishal, Zelek, and Skizik. You'll hear those names a couple times again in the future. Lost in despair, Terokk was called by no other than the raven god Anzu. He rallied his followers, who had also transformed and moved through the Sethek Hollow. Eventually, they were led to a peculiar orb, the Eye of Anzu. This is where Terokk and his followers met the god in person. Terokk was given the eye, which he could use to contact Anzu. Anzu also bestowed powers of darkness upon the broken Arakkoa. Among others, Ishal, Zelek and Skizik became Talon priests, basically the higher ranked Arakkoa of Terokk's bunch. Note that Anzu had not been cured from Sethe's curse himself, so he could not help these Arakkoa with that. Even though they bore the curse, they went on to build the city of Sketis. Now, hold on. If you paid attention, you knew that there already were stories of Terokk building Sketis on his own before he was cast off of Skyreach. Nonetheless, a variety of sources state that Sketis was not built before the broken Arakkoa received Anzu's gift. I'm not sure which one of these is true, but for the rest of the story it doesn't really matter. Either one way or another, Sketis became a refuge for all who bore the curse of Sethe in the days to come. All these refugees and broken Arakkoa came together, and under the leadership of Terokk, they became a faction called the Arakkoa Outcasts. In the upcoming stories, I'll refer to the flying Arakkoa as Arakkoa. Note that not all flying Arakkoa are adherents. And to the cursed and broken Arakkoa as Outcasts. As time went on, things did not go too well for the Outcasts. Terokk's health declined, and the curse wore heavily on him. On top of this, he never became at peace with Lithic's death, and thus he became a shadow of himself as a whole. He turned to dark powers, even sacrificing the lower ranked Outcasts, in the hope of finding a cure to Seth's curse. Seeing their leader do such terrible things pained the Outcasts, and eventually the Talon priests sealed Terokk away in the realm of shadows, hoping that he would eventually rejuvenate in solitude. Some of Terokk's artifacts stayed in our realm, but other than that, Terokk was gone. Around this time, some major events came to be, where our reality and the alternate universe Drainos start to drift away from each other. In the next episode of this series, we will talk more about the Arakkoa of Skyreach, and our interactions with the Outcasts in Outland during the Burning Crusade. I'd love to see you there, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.